Welcome to Open Heart Conversations. I'm Reverend Dr. Jose Miguel Roman, Spiritual Counsel, here at the United Palace of Spiritual Arts. At Open Heart Conversations, we bring together some of the top minds in spirituality and religion in order to explore the enduring wisdom traditions of the world. Today, we will be exploring the Tao of healing with Reverend Diane Rooney. Reverend Diane Rooney is an ordained interspiritual minister, as well as a licensed acupuncturist, Reiki master, massage therapist, board-certified herbologist, and she was also a senior faculty member at Tri-State College of Acupuncture. Today, she is a first-year dean at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. It is her love of Chinese medicine that piqued her interest in Taoism. Besides expanding her knowledge of Qigong practices, one of Diane's passions is to travel both nationally and internationally to small towns and bring healing to those who would otherwise not have the opportunity. She offers tools for self-healing based on Eastern philosophy and Taoist principles. She holds the 2014 Award for Worldwide Leader in Healthcare, Top Integrative Acupuncturist, and has been the recipient of the first annual Grumpy Fish Award for excellence in working with aromatherapy and children with cancer, and also for outstanding service to the Ground Zero workers after the 9/11 attacks. She is co-author of many research articles on acupuncture within pediatric oncology. Today, Diane is working on her dissertation for a doctorate in ministry entitled Internal Alchemy, Self-Healing Through Taoist Principles. And just for purposes of complete transparency, Diane is also not only a dear friend and a former seminary classmate, she is my integrative acupuncturist as well. So Diane, it is such a pleasure to welcome you to Open Heart Conversations.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. And I think maybe the very first question is going to be one that a lot of people are going to ask. And that is, here you are, like myself, a Western person, enjoying all the benefits of Western civilization. What piqued your interest in Taoism?
Well, Taoism, I like to say, actually found me. I had a history of working on various licenses and certificates to try to bring healing to people. So first I was a reflexologist, and then I joined a healing foundation group, and I learned different techniques on how to bring healing to people. And then from there I became an acupuncturist, and then practiced acupuncture for about 20 years now. It falls under the umbrella of Taoism. Mm-hmm. But as I look back on my path of healing, Taoism is about being in the present. It's about not worrying and having anxiety about the future or pondering your failures of the past. It's about being in the present. And when I work one-on-one with people, no matter what it is, reflexology, massage, acupuncture, one-on-one healing techniques, guided visualization, things like that, it's always about bringing them into the present moment. And that in and of itself is Taoism. I didn't realize it was Taoism at the time. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I realized I was actually practicing Taoist practices. Much later, I would say early or late 90s is when I really understood what I was doing was Taoist practices. And then I really started to dig into the sacred texts and the philosophies and all of that stuff. So Taoism really found me. I just kind of fell into it or flowed into it, as a Taoist would say.
Mm. So. Now, it's sort of interesting. Taoism, along with like the Hindu faith and the Jewish faith, is one of those truly ancient traditions. Taoism is even more ancient than Buddhism and has affected Buddhism significantly. Tell us a little bit about the history of Taoism.
Sure. Well, the father of Taoism, we say, is Lao Tzu. And he was about 6th century BCE, but he was not the father of Taoism. He was an archivist, he was a librarian. He just recorded all these philosophical sayings because he had access to the kings and the emperors and the rulers of the time and their writings. So he
In China, correct? He was
in
Chinese.
China, in
Fascinating.
China. So
Okay.
he start right at the end of the warring states, the Zhao dynasty. So before Lao Tzu, China was extremely violent. There was just a lot of warring going on because it was the birth of the Iron Age. And so out of the end of this came all these philosophies. Buddha came along, Confucius came along, Lao Tzu came along. But the history of Taoism, although it wasn't called Taoism, was ancient, probably about 2,000 or 3,000 years before Lao Tzu. So you have the Huangdi Neijing, which is dated about 2600 BCE, the Yellow Emperor's Canon of Internal Medicine, which is a Taoist text. Before that, you had what was shamanism. It was the Wu people. But what they were practicing was harmony with nature, which is Taoist practices. So Taoism really took the shape of shamanism before Lao Tzu, and he kind of made it philosophical. And from there, then there was internal alchemy that came out of that, which are internal practices. And then from there came the religion. Taoism wasn't a religion, but later became religious. And what that means is ritualistic.
Right.
Temples, ritual, things like that.
So tell me a little bit about Lao Tzu in a sense of what exactly he did that allowed him to, as this great librarian with great exposure to all this learning and all this history, all this philosophy, he did something that brought it all together. What was that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, he wrote the most second translated book in the history of the planet called the Dao De Ching. First of all, let me just say, we don't know if Lao Tzu is real.
Right.
He could be a fictional character. He may not be. We don't know. But around 600 BCE or so, he, like I said, was a librarian. He gathered all these sayings and wrote, well, actually before that, he had been fed up with society. And he decided, we're told, he decided to, first of all, I'm backing up here. Lao Tzu means old man or old master.
Right.
Okay. There is fable on how he was born. He was supposedly born an old man. So he was born 81 years old, and there happens to be 81 chapters in the Tao Te Ching, so 81 is an important number. But in any event, he was fed, the story goes, he was fed up with society. He rode an ox out towards Tibet, out of China.
So let's set this up. Here is this brilliant, very old man, right?
Wise man.
Wise man, working in the libraries with exposure to all of this magnificent, which also means a magnificent life.
Recording all these wonderful texts.
He's in the court of the emperor, right,
Yes.
of China. And then he makes a decision, enough is enough. I'm leaving all of this. I am, if you will, retiring.
Yeah.
And now he gets on
an ox.
An ox? And
was he retiring? We don't know.
Right.
The story goes that he tried to practice what he was writing, and he was frustrated that people were not adhering to that, to the new way of thinking, which is just to be still, to let go, to stop clamoring for stuff and for power and for gain. And so he was fed up. So he climbed an ox and he rode west. At the gates, the gatekeeper recognized who he was. And he said, no, don't go. And Lao Tzu's like, no, I'm going. And he said, no, please. He's like, no, I'm going. He said, all right, if you're going to go, can you please write down your wisdom? So it is said for the next either hour or 3 days, again, the stories always change, he sat down, had tea with the gatekeeper, and wrote down 81 verses or chapters in what is now called the Tao Te Ching. And so we have this book that really came out into the public and gained momentum probably around 3rd century BCE.
Right.
So it was much later that it gained momentum because Confucianism was really the main political and social religion of the time.
So the Tao Te Ching is one of the central sacred scriptures of Taoism.
It is.
And truly one of the great sacred scriptures of the world, along with the Dharmapada, the Jewish scriptures, the Christian scriptures,
Yes,
right?
it is.
It's extraordinary.
And it's so tiny. It's a small little book.
Mhm.
And it is said that you can spend a half hour reading it or a lifetime. But there are other texts too on Taoism. As I mentioned, well, the I Ching,
Right.
the Huangdi Neijing, and then Zhuangzi, which is a man around 300 BCE who wrote a book called his name, the Zhuangzi. And he really also is credited with one of the most profound books in Taoism and Taoist practices, Taoist stories, Taoist philosophies that there is, right next to the Tao Te Ching. He actually made the Tao Te Ching what it is, so we're told.
So let's go now maybe into the Tao Te Ching itself and into the philosophy itself by asking what I guess would be the central question. What is the Tao?
What is the Tao? Well, what is the Tao indeed? The Tao is not a god. Let's just put that out there. It's not an anthropomorphic figure. It's not a personified deity. Tao is the void. Tao is nothing and Tao is everything, which is why we in the West have such a hard time trying to comprehend Tao philosophy because there's no being. There's no prophet. There's no messenger of Tao. It just is. So the book teaches us, the Tao Te Ching teaches us that to speak the Tao, you are not in Tao because you're separate from this void, this nothingness. But we have to understand it. There was words put to it. So in order to understand it, even in chapter 1, we are told the Tao is nothing and everything. We are also told that the Tao became the one became the two became the three, and the three became 10,000 things. So what that means is the void became something. It became a whole, the one. But in order for the one to understand itself, it had to split into two. And we call that yin and yang. And that's the two, we in the West call it opposites, but they're not opposites. Yin and yang are two aspects of Tao that transmute and form each other and come out of each other. They seem like opposites, but they aren't. As an example, yin would be nighttime, and we can't understand nighttime unless we understand what daytime is, and that's yang. But yang, day becomes night, becomes day, becomes night. It's not day, night, right? It's they meld into each other. So, or change into each other, or transmute. So that transmuting into each other is the third. So the one becomes the two becomes the three, which is the relationship between the two, and the three become the 10,000. In China, they use 10,000 to mean infinite, everything. And we can even say that the one became the two, became the three, became the four, which is the four directions, became the five, which is the five elements in Chinese medicine and Chinese philosophy, and in Taoism, everything is related to nature and harmony, which is what the Tao Te Ching talks about as well. So nature has its seasons, and each season has an element. So that would be the five. And then the five become the 10,000. So the Tao, long answer to your short question on, well, but what is Tao and how does the book talk about it? It talks about, I would say, it talks about being still, letting go, and flowing. Just flow. Instead of trying to change things and manipulate things and control things, if you let it go, it will happen. Nature does nothing, yet everything gets done, Lao Tzu tells us. So if we let go and just let things unfold naturally, we'll get things done. We'll get exactly what we need, and we'll get exactly what we want. We just have to let go and let flow.
It's interesting. There are two things that you've said that have really resonated with me that I think many of us in the West need to really sit with. The first is this brilliant statement that comes out of Taoist literature, that to speak of the Tao is not the Tao. There's this deep, deep ancient wisdom that the mythology is not the reality. The mythology is necessary, the language is necessary, the teachings are necessary, because our minds want to wrap itself around it. And yet there's this deep understanding that teaching is not the reality. Let the teaching in many ways give you a sense of comfort enough that you could open yourself up to the reality, but the reality is not to be understood, but realized.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all we have. We have language so that we can learn.
Right.
I think ultimately, just being still and allowing who we are inside the wrapping, inside our spacesuit called the body, we would learn, we would know, we would just know. But we can't do that today, at least not yet. So we need words to tell us what we don't need, you know? And so I just find it fascinating that the very first line of the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao is not the Tao if it's spoken about. Yet how else are we going to learn of the Tao unless we speak about it? And words are language, and we need to speak about it. But that spoken word, these lessons, lead us towards undoing. So it's all about undoing. And the more I study Taoist practices, the more I see it's about stillness. It's about stillness of mind. It's about stillness of breath. It's about stillness of being. And it's not about movement, yet we move. There's a concept in Taoism called Wu Wei, and its translation is action, non-action. That's its literal translation. Like, what does that mean? Action, non-action. It's a paradox, and that's another thing. The Tao Te Ching is filled with paradox. It means you do move, but you don't force the movement. It's power without force. It's, Alan Watts kind of likens it to a sailboat versus a rowboat. Right. Right? So you move, but you're letting go and you're letting nature take you. And when you do that, you become closer, I think, to what Tao is, to being Tao, because we're all fragments of the whole. We're all rays of sun, if you will. So is a ray separate than the sun? Is it the sun? Are there many rays? Or is it just one ray coming from the one being called the sun? So are we. We're a ray of Tao. So we're our Tao, yet we're separate, yet we're not. And we're all rays of Tao. And in Chinese medicine, at least the way I practice it, I want to, when a patient walks in, I want to know how I can bring them closer to the one. What is standing in their way of becoming more of who they are, becoming more of Tao, becoming more of the immortal self that we are, which is a principle of Taoism. And that immortal self is that which is covered by skin and bones and personality, because the immortal self does not change. So we know Tao isn't the body, Tao isn't words, because words change, our body changes. Tao is that thing within us that never changes, and that's what immortality is to get in touch with that which is immortal within ourself, and that's Tao.
What is the difference between Tao and Taoism?
Well, Taoism is the study of Tao.
Excellent.
Taoism became, so as I mentioned in the history, you had the shamans just being at one with nature. Then you had Lao Tzu talking about the philosophy of Taoism and giving us verse after verse on how we can do that. Then you had Zhuangzi giving us stories about who we are in relation to Taoism. Then we had the rituals, which is when it became a religion.
Right.
And so I think Taoism is those rituals, the study of, the worship of deities and lighting incense and things, which is not true Tao. Tao is nothing that's attached to anything. That's where it overlaps with Buddhism, I think. And so Taoism is the study of the void and that emptiness and wholeness that we are. But again, we need it to get there.
It's really interesting. Knowing you the way I do, I know that I think your heart's deepest commitment is to healing. You are a healer. I once remember saying to you that my experience of you is such that I feel you've been a healer for thousands of years. And I know that Taoism, in many ways for you, the importance, the value, the passion comes from its association with healing. So, and we actually referred to this program today as the Tao of healing. What does Taoism have to say about healing? Yeah. What is it that how did Taoism affect you? How do you understand it as being able to really continue and enhance your work as a healer?
So what does Taoism say about healing is your question? So Tao means the way. So it's a road, it's a path. There is a lot of suffering out there in the world.
Indeed.
There's a lot of pain and anguish, and there's a lot of physical suffering. We have a lot of ailments. There's a lot of pharmaceutical use out there. So in my opinion, we are away from that stillness. So what does Taoism have to say about healing? Taoism is healing. I kind of parse it and find out how I can bring principles of Taoism to others so that they become more whole, more balanced, more still, less anxious, less in pain. And the way that is done is through internal alchemy. Internal alchemy has what's called Qigong, which is movements that kind of symbolize what's going on inside. Neigong is the internal movements like breath and sound. And then you have Neidan, which is alchemy means transformation, which is a transformation of that which is stuck within us in order for free flow so healing can take place. So all of this has to do basically with qi. Qi in Chinese medicine is life force. It's translated as energy in the West, but it's beyond energy. It's life force. It's animating force. It feeds everything within us.
Is qi and the Dao the same thing?
That's an excellent question. Well, everything is Tao, so qi is Tao. Qi is the breath that Tao gives us, the life that Tao gives us.
Wow.
In order to exist and survive in every living thing. Every living thing has qi. And qi is always in relationship with itself as different qualities within us and around us. So when we're ill, something is stuck. Let's say you have knee pain, right? The qi that's supposed to flow through the meridians, these energy pathways in our body, is stuck and it causes pain. My job as a healer is to unblock that dam, so to speak, and get that free flow of qi, and then the pain diminishes. Anxiety is a rising of qi, and it's stuck up here when it's supposed to be all the way down to our feet and through our head and vice versa, and constantly moving through all our organs and our blood vessels and our nerves and everything. And so when we're anxious or we have insomnia or we can't sleep, it's stuck. When we get headaches, we have heat that rises, which is stuck qi, right? And in order to change that, not only do I use acupuncture needles, but breath helps that. Sound helps that. Visualization helps that. Meditation helps that. It's about syncing the qi, because we in the West, as you know, are all up here. As a matter of fact, if you want, let's do a little exercise.
Absolutely.
So you just sit up straight, and for those that are watching, just if you're sitting, sit up straight, and just kind of tune into your body and feel where is it? Where are you feeling most of your energy right now, for whatever that means to you? If it's a pain, where is that? If it's shortness of breath, look at that. If you're having a headache or neck pain, or wherever it is, if it's in your belly, just focus where that energy is. And now, in your mind, if you close your eyes, right now, your mind's eye is behind your eyes, I would assume. And now I want you to bring your focus all the way down to the bottom of your belly. Now, I don't want you to observe the belly from above behind your eyes, but as if you're taking an elevator down. So now your awareness behind the eyes now shifts to the jaw, the awareness in the throat, in the chest. You see your ribs, your lungs fall down into the diaphragm and all your internal organs, down into the belly. And now you're inside of what I call the pelvic bowl or the hip area. And just reside there. Look around. See what's around you. Listen. Listen to what's around you. It's called ting. T-I-N-G. Ting. Now, how do you listen inside of you? That's up to you to figure out. But it's really about being absorbed in the space at the bottom of your belly. And allow your breath to reside there. And listen to your breath. Ting inside your hips. Really feel that expanding all the way down at the bottom of your hips. And when you feel ready, just come back into the room and open your eyes. How do you feel, Jose?
Calm.
So
Really calm.
So this is one example of what you can do daily, or what we can all do daily in our lives. That's just breath and listening. Zhuangzi has many stories, anecdotes about different life happenings, and he always has a little humor to it. He has a story about a butcher. His name is Butcher Ting. And Lord Wenhui was watching him cut an ox for meat. And he didn't hack, and the meat just fell off the bones. And Wenhui said, "How did you do that? I didn't see you cut into any muscle, any tendon, any leg. And the meat just fell right off the bone." Butcher Ting, which said, "Because I used to look at the ox with my eyes, and now I listen. I fill, with my spirit, I fill myself in the spaces between the muscles, between the joints, between the tendons, in the spaces in the ox. And that's where I put the knife. And all I have to do is move the knife around in the space between, and all else happens. Everything flows and happens exactly as it's supposed to. A good butcher will sharpen his knife once a year. He'll cut. A mediocre butcher will sharpen his knife once a month. He'll hack. I have not sharpened my knife in 19 years. Now, is it a coincidence that butcher's name is Ting, and Ting means to listen into the spaces in ourselves so that everything drops off, anxiety drops, breath increases, and healing starts to take place. That's just one example.
It's what fascinates me is how remarkably different that perspective is to our own Western perspective.
Yes.
Because our own Western perspective really is about control and mastery of nature, of the Tao, if you will. What we're actually looking at, what we're exploring in the East, is this sense that it's not about control and mastery. It really is about being a part of, entering, surrendering to this, if you will, greater wisdom, the wisdom really of life. Am I correct?
Yes, it's about do, go, go, get, take.
Right.
And I will ask you one thing. As we look around at the populations in the West, generally speaking, are we happy? Are we at peace? Are we filled with joy? That's a real question I'm asking you. What do you think?
I think that we certainly find some who are. I think we also find many who are struggling.
Yeah. I think there's a
Many who
lot of
struggle.
suffering out there.
Yes, there is.
Which is why we think getting more is going to bring us happiness, and it doesn't. I heard Wayne Dyer say not long ago, in Taoism, you don't have to give up anything. You just let go. However, if you find something owns you, that's when you need to let it go. That's when you give that up, if something owns you. So how many of us in the West are owned, even if it's by our own schedule, by our phones, by work, by committing to being better, bigger, you know? And it's not to say that it can't be had, but the path to it in the West is all about yang. If we're going to go back to yin and yang, it's all yang. It's out, out, out. Yang is light, out, movement. And it's necessary, but we have to have equal and opposite balance of yin, which is quiet and in. So if we're out, 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 we're missing a whole half of balance and harmony, which remember is that Tai Chi symbol, the
Right.
yin-yang symbol. That circle is Tao. So within that circle, you have the two halves. If we just have one half, we're missing a whole half of Tao. And that's not Tao. Tao is wholeness. I mean, even think about wintertime, the solstice, when it's the darkest. We really should be going to sleep when it gets dark at
Right.
4:30, 5 o'clock here in the northeast part of the United States. But what do? We turn on lights. We have Christmas lights or holiday lights or, everything is light and that, and we're out, out, out. And it just goes against nature. Tao will not let us go against nature without some consequences. You cannot imbalance universal harmony without consequences. And those consequences are ill health, disease, imbalance, disharmony, suffering, anxiety, insomnia, digestive disorders, pains, aches, things all that manifest in our bodies, minds, and emotions because we're out of sync with nature. It is said when we are in sync, all is taken care of. We do nothing and everything gets done like nature does. Tao teaches us to become like water. Water is often used as a metaphor in the Tao Te Ching because water flows. It comes up against a boulder. It doesn't try to break down the boulder, to change the boulder, to pick it up and move it. It goes around it. And Tao knows that in several thousand years, that boulder will be a pebble anyway,
Absolutely
and it'll just
right.
move along
Right.
with the water. Where we in the West will try to change that boulder and move that boulder and force our way into into the path that boulder is in the way of, instead of just going around it. So become more like water. Now, this all sounds lovely and wonderful, but what is the pragmatic part of this? We have to live, we have to work, we have to pay our rent, we have to feed our children, we have to do these things. But if we can just stop during the day, this is my own opinion, and just take a breath, drop down, listen, go into Ting inside the body, and where are we living? Is it up here? And drop it down. Then we won't get so mad and angry at the supermarket, at the light, at the person who passes us at the, on the road, things like that. And all those little things will also add to our ill health and disease. So if we drop those things, we will become healthier and happier.
So you literally are saying it is possible to work and have a spouse and have children and have a home and have to pay rent or mortgage and be able to do all of that within a context of, if you will, flowing more with the Tao.
Of course, because Tao is everything.
Right.
So Tao is the West. Tao is work. Tao is struggle, and Tao is not struggle. That's the thing with Tao too, is action, non-action. It is and it isn't at the same time. So it is feeding your children and struggling to feed your children, but it's also feeding your children and not struggling to feed your children. Life is going to happen. It's a matter of how we perceive it that matters. And that's what we have control over. And it's the paradox is letting control of what we have control over, which is just allowing things to be as they are. There's somebody at work you just that annoys you, irritates you. How are you going to deal with them yet another day? You just let it flow through you and pass you if you can.
In a few minutes, I'm going to ask a simple question, which is practices that we can undertake on a daily basis that would help us, if you will, enter more into that kind of Taoist living. Before we do that, there is something I want to ask you about. You are a healer. The healing that you do is deeply influenced by Taoism. I know for a fact, having gone to you for healing, that you believe people can continue certainly to benefit from Western medicine. You never tell people to get off their medications, but they can also augment that with Eastern and more integrative practices. I've had an experience like that with you, a profound experience where I, in a gym, hurt my back, went to a physical therapist, had enormous pain, came to you one day. We did this, I think I was with you for about an hour, maybe even less. You basically did acupuncture and a series of other things. I remember walking out of your house and the pain I had had, the horrible pain I'd had for 2 weeks, had disappeared. And I remember leaving your clinic thinking to myself, oh, well, it'll come back tomorrow. This is all a placebo effect. The next day, of course, I didn't have pain. And frankly, I didn't go back to physical therapy again. It just disappeared. It was remarkable. One of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had, and I've shared this with you over and over again. Tell me, what is the relationship between acupuncture and those other healing modalities you used on me that day and Taoism?
Well, first of all, thank you for calling me a healer. I kind of shy away from that word. I'm just a facilitator for healing energy. That's how I like to think of myself.
Phenomenal.
So let's just get that out of the
Excellent.
way. It's acupuncture. You know, acupuncture has been around for 3,500 years or more. And it is simply moving the qi in the body. So you had back pain. Your qi was stuck. My job was to find where it was stuck. So I used the needles to access these little what are called subos, or whirlpools of energy on our body, or acupuncture points. They're commonly called. I put the needle in that, manipulate the needle in order to get rid of anything that's in the way and get that free flow of energy, that qi. That's Taoism. I also added Reiki, so it's kind of a hands-on, it's an Eastern philosophy, Japanese Eastern philosophy, but if everything is Tao, then of course it's going to fall under that as well, but it's not technically Taoist practices. And really that's just about bringing kind of warmth and healing to that particular area of the body. What's really happening on a Taoist level is bringing your awareness, the patient, into that area and experiencing that area with a different relationship. So once again, from a Taoist perspective, you had back pain, but at the same time, you had non-back pain. You had put your attention on back pain, but the two live simultaneously together. They always do. I just changed your attention into the non-back pain with the needles, And as a result, with the needles and your attention, you felt the free flow of qi and then the back response to no back pain. I'm simplifying this, and of course it's not like this across the board. I'm not saying don't get cancer treatments or diabetes, insulin if you need it, things like that. But these tiny little things we can do for ourselves. It's where you put your focus, where you put your breath, and you can ask for help by a Chinese medicine practitioner. And with that is just the movement of qi. I often give my patients some movements to do at home. A simple breath movement. So once again, if you want to do this, and for those looking, you can do this anywhere. You can do this watching TV at home. You just open your arms like this, take a big breath, inhale, and exhale. And feel your lungs like almost like squeezing like an accordion, and open up and close and open and so on. And this breath brings oxygen to your body, to your cells. Your cells start to respond. Your cells want to be healthy. Your cells just are waiting for you to tell them what to do. So if you tell them I bring oxygen to you and bring health, they're going to start to respond. The body is an amazing thing. Why? Because it has this immortal, conscious, tapped in essence that is all-knowing within it. And that's Tao, is to get closer and closer to that. And the more we do that, the more still we become. Taoist masters, if you watch them or read about them, they do less and less of the Tai Chi, Qigong, things like that. When you're a neophyte, like I am, you do more movement in order to help bring you to open up the spaces in your joints, open up the tendons, get the muscles moving in such a way that's healthy. And when that gets out of the way, like Butcher Ting, you focus in the spaces between. And of course, you get more and more quiet. And then all is given to you like the ox just gives of its meat.
What would be practices that someone busy in the middle of Western civilization with a full day of family and work and community can do that might bring that individual, that man, that woman, that young person, that individual to a deeper connection with Tao, deeper connection with that part of themselves that really is healthy and powerful and healing?
Well, what comes to mind first is pick up a copy of the Tao Te Ching. There are many translators. Personally, I like Jonathan Starr's translation, Derek Lynn's translation, Stephen Mitchell's translation. Those are three I can just think of the top of my head. And just pick up and just read a verse. Just pick up the book, open it up and read a verse and just sit with that verse. Or get an Audible if you're driving to work and just listen to a verse along the way. These words will start to penetrate. I say this personally because it's happened to me and everyone I've talked to. Just let the words seep in. So that's something you can do on your way to work or first thing in the morning. If you have time, do some of these exercises, just simple breath work, simple movements, a couple Qigong movements. Compressing the pearl is one. And all you're doing here, look how easy this is.
You're just bringing both your hands together
and
as if you had a ball in front of you.
And I'm squeezing it like an accordion back and forth. But it seems like that's all I'm doing. But what am I really doing? I'm opening up the bones in my palms with my imagination. And I'm feeling the space between my bones and my muscles in my imagination. And now I'm imagining these these centers in my palm radiating with energy and heat. And I'm pressing these two palms together, not touching, but pressing, to generate qi. And from doing that, I can then bring these two together, rub my hands together. You feel the heat once you rub your hands together, and put it on any part of your body to bring about healing. So you can do that while you're at your desk. You can bring it to, if you have knee pain, do compressing the pearl exercise. So two palms together like you're holding an accordion, back and forth, opening up the space in your palms, allowing the heat and the qi, the energy, to flow between the two, the relationship with the two. Bring your palms together, rub them together, generate heat, and put them on whatever's ailing you. You could put it on your face if you're feeling tired to just pick you up. If you have time, I would say go on YouTube. Look up Qigong practices for anxiety, and you can get some movements there, or go to a class, or find a teacher. There's many, many ways you can bring practices in your life. But if you are struggling, busy, have no time, just breathe. Just ting and breathe.
And focus on that breath.
And focus on the breath, dropping the breath. That's the key. Dropping it into the pelvic bowl. Dropping it, dropping it, dropping it. We live too much in our throat, our heads, our chest. Bring it down. Bring it down. Look at animals, right? They're all grounded. All animal, even birds. You know, when they land, they're grounded.
You once said that to me. It was sort of interesting. I came to you again for acupuncture, and you said to me, stop living only in your head, live in your entire body.
Yes, yes. And we in the West live in our head.
Yes.
Because we're rewarded for that, right?
Right.
But we need to, our head is one part of our body, right? Our mind our mind just likes to go. It just likes to move. We need to train it to listen, to stop, to look at life as sweet and not worry so much, which reminds me of the story of the three masters and the vat of vinegar. It was Confucius, Buddha, and Lao Tzu. And they're all standing over a huge vat of vinegar. And Confucius puts his finger in, tastes it, and says, this vinegar is sour. Buddha says this vinegar is bitter. Lao Tzu says this vinegar is sweet. Confucius says sour because he's responding to the warring states and the sourness of life and the need for morals and rules and regulations, and that's all living in the head and you have to have this moral road in order to live in life. Buddha says it's bitter because he sees that life is suffering and you need the Four Noble Truths and you need things to take you out of that bitterness, that suffering. Lao Tzu says vinegar is what vinegar is. It is its own nature, and that's sweet, and therefore life is sweet. So if we can start looking at life as that vat of vinegar through the eyes of Lao Tzu, through the eyes of Taoism, then we can quiet our minds. We can see that it is what it is. Because it's supposed to be. And we don't have to brace up, try to manipulate it and control it and fight it. Just allow it to flow. And as a result, I promise you, as a result, your body will start to follow. Your body will start to relax. When your mind relaxes, your body will start to relax. And healing, such as it is, we're all different, however that looks in you, will start to unfold and take place. You can go find somebody to help you accelerate that healing if you wish, or you can do it on your own. But pick up the book of the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi if you really want to embody all of it.
In our exploration of the world's enduring spiritual and religious traditions, I've had a lot of spiritual teachers here. And one of the questions that I try to get at in one way or the other has to do with ethics. Many of these philosophies, spiritualities, religions have some level of ethical teachings. They say something about how we should treat not only ourselves but each other. In Taoism, what is the ethical perspective? What are the ethical teachings? What's the ethical view, if any?
Well, there's two answers to that. The short answer is that there is no ethics in Taoism because Taoism is about being at harmony, universal harmony. So there is no ethics or morals. Although historically, Tao means the way, and it just meant a road. And then about 800 BCE, it got changed to a moral road. So there were some ethics that were kind of put upon it.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the moral road, it became the heavenly road and then the divine way. So in one sense, yes, there are ethics and morals, but that was put upon it. If we go back to the Wu people, if you live in harmony, you don't need morals. And that's the foundation of Taoism and Tao. You don't need to be something in relationship to something because you already are. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. If you're already in harmonious relationship
Right.
with everything,
Right.
why would you need to live by any specific rules?
Right. So that's why Lao Tzu was always on about, he was never really a moral policeman. He was about what to do to get you back to that stillness, back to that universal, harmonious way of living. Having said that, we are taught in Taoism there are three vehicles. The first is good deeds, and that's the simplest of the three vehicles. Just do good deeds. Be nice to people, do good deeds. If you think of others, then you're really helping yourself as well. The second vehicle is ritual, and that is in community, through ritual, through symbols, through sound and temples and things like that, you become kind of ethically or morally committed to the community as one, as you are praying to, chanting to an outside deity or being. But I'm going to reiterate and say that's not the original Tao.
Right.
Right? It's not praying to deities. Lao Tzu never talked about deities. He never called himself a prophet. There was no worshiping of anything outside of yourself.
So this was an augmentation over time.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. We're almost into AD now at this point in the calendar. The third and most difficult of the three vehicles is the internal alchemy. So, and that gets rid of all ethics, and that's what I discussed before. The internal alchemy is the Neidan, which is that transformation of qi within our body, so that we become one with the immortal self that we are. There's the Neigong, which is the breath and the sound and the internal movements and the ting and the listening. And then there's the Qigong, which is the outward movement. So, but again, all of this is not, Tao doesn't really have a set of standards because it takes it outside of Tao.
Makes sense.
So it's kind of a paradox.
I've always thought ritual is fascinating because when I had the opportunity to study with Roman Catholic liturgists, if you will, Roman Catholic ritual experts, there was something that was shared with me which I thought was really quite profound. The teacher said to me, a ritual is a way of reliving a myth in such a way that over time your consciousness is transformed. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. That if you sit there, for example, say the Eucharist, right? A Roman Catholic Passover, if you will, that you enter into that ritual, you enter into that myth, you enter into that story, you become a part of it. You literally embody it. You practice it in the true deepest sense in such a way that over time it transforms your consciousness. In other words, it's a form of alchemy.
It
right?
can be, yeah.
It almost takes the ethics on the one hand and the alchemy on the other, ritual, and brings it together in this enactment.
Enactment, I like that word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's profound, isn't it?
It is, and ritual is. We've been ritualists since the beginning of time, so there's something to ritual. I always see ritual as a symbol, a metaphor for the deeper mysteries that we can't quite put a word to or grasp. So we need things
Yes.
in order to understand that mystery. And so we use symbols and rituals in order to do that. I also see ritual as a way of drumming up, stoking up energy, life force,
Agreed.
love, these basic things that we are, in order to understand them and embody them more. Where we get into trouble is not the right word. I can't think of the word at the moment, but where it becomes kind of lost is when we just do the ritual without feeling it, because we're just so used to doing it, it becomes rote. And you see, that's our mind again. Our mind just goes with what it knows, and it just goes on and on and on. And we're not seeing the newness or feeling it as if it's the first time we've ever done it. I'm not saying all ritualists do that. I'm just saying some of us do that. If we do rituals every day, or it's okay, it's time to do this, it's time to light the candle, without feeling it, embodying it.
It's fascinating. One of the reasons I'm trying to get us a little bit into that is because, in essence, what rituals teach us may be something we can also learn and bring into the healing modality. Because if we walk into a healing and truly surrender to it, we ritualize it in a sense.
Well, I guess it is a ritual.
Right?
When I do my acupuncture treatments, they are rituals. Yes,
They are.
They are. I do. I happen to bring in a lot of tools, so I may, do some Palo Santo just to kind of clear the energy around. A little bit of Reiki, essential oils, to bring in that life force of the plant. Bring that into it,
Right.
into the whole healing, as well as the acupuncture. Some spiritual counseling might be going on. That's all ritualistic. Yeah. And when somebody gets well, it's because not only it's what I'm doing, it's they're participating too. They're open to having the shift within their energetic system.
Right.
So that's what I mean. There's got to be an opening, a participation in the ritual in order for it to change us and heal us, inform us, infuse us, whatever we're doing the ritual for. And so if Taoists need to light candles and pray to the Jade Emperor, then so be it. If that's what brings you closer to that stillness within. I keep using that word. Stillness within. That's where we need to go. We don't need to. I suggest we go when you're studying Taoist practices. It's about parsing out all the extraneous stuff, letting go, and being still. And if ritual brings you to that, then ritual. I have ritual. I do my Qigong practice. That's
Right.
ritual.
Right.
Because I'm not there yet. One day I won't need that, maybe, in several lifetimes.
It is interesting, though, that again, a way in which Taoism is both informing and maybe challenging us as Westerners is, to some extent, there is in Taoism a sense that we're living in a universe we don't have to fear. We're living, right? We're living, there's nothing to fear
That's
in
right.
life. That we are life, and that
That's
life
right.
is our partner, and that if we give life the opportunity and surrender to life, in the Abrahamic traditions we might say surrender to God, that it'll all work out.
Yes.
Right?
It is said that if you don't give your enemy anything, the enemy goes away. If there's nothing, no life force you give to the fear, it's going to go away. Yes, there is nothing to fear because everything is in perfect harmony. Now, we need, not to step on the subway track,
Right.
but that's just common sense and wisdom or knowledge, right? But we don't need to fear the subway.
Right.
You know, we don't need to, life will happen anyway. Once again, it's how we perceive it. We don't need to be afraid.
It's interesting because we're not being told to do nothing. We're being told to surrender to everything in such a way that the wisdom to what we need to do arises naturally.
Because it's all in you. It's all in all of us. The wisdom is inside. It's in there. And we just need to stop the voices in our head to listen to it.
It's like we get out of the way.
If we just get out of the way physically, mentally, and emotionally, our body will do what it needs to do. And listen to your body. If
Right.
you need to go to sleep at 5 o'clock in the dead of winter and you say, I can't because it's too early, go to sleep. Who's saying I can't? You know, where is the wisdom there? Who's the one that's saying I can't? Is that the wise one? Or is the wisdom the body saying I need sleep right now? As an example.
So we live in a universe that fundamentally is our partner, our friend.
We live in we are that universe.
Right.
It's not even our friend because that's outside ourselves.
Completely right.
We are the universe. It's all within us. And we are within it. Yeah.
That's profound. It's interesting because you say we have to get out of our way. In many ways, we're sort of, we in the West, we're kind of constantly struggling with life, right? I mean, there's this sense of we're almost little warriors, wake up every morning about to go, do war with the world, right? We're living in a kind of a delusion of constant struggle. And it seems like Taoism seems to be suggesting that we have to get out of that delusion.
Because we don't know who we are. We don't know who we truly are. It is said in Taoism, the true Taoist master is the newborn. The newborn does not think about its nose is too big or its diapers are too wet or even separates itself from its parents or its surroundings. The newborn just is. That's the true Taoist master. When we understand, and we're told who we're put on labels. Taoism, there's no labels. Chuang Tzu has a good story that I'm reminded of. He said he was sleeping one night and he was dreaming of being a butterfly, and he was flying around and he was being free and beautiful as butterflies are, and landing on flowers and flitting about and being a beautiful butterfly. And he was enjoying being a butterfly. And then he woke up and he realized he was Chuang Tzu, dreaming he was a butterfly. Or was he now the butterfly dreaming he was Chuang Tzu that woke up? So Chuang Tzu always had these stories. He never gave you answers. He always presented these stories so you could think about, am I the butterfly dreaming I'm Chuang Tzu, or am I Chuang Tzu dreaming I'm the butterfly? The point is, we are the butterfly, we are Chuang Tzu, and we are neither. I keep saying that because this is the paradox of Taoism. We are many, many fragments, facets, if you will, of a diamond, right? We are all those things. When we identify with the suffering, and we do it en masse, and we do it in community, and we do it in nationally, so it seems like it's just normal because we all do it. We think that that's who we are, and that's what we need to do to get ahead because that's what society says. But which came first? That newborn came first who doesn't struggle, who doesn't try to be anything other than it is, and it's beautiful as it is. And if we could start to shift that identification, all we have is ourselves to start with. But if you do it, and I do it, and everybody else does it, one by one by one, we will start to form a community who doesn't identify with the struggler and the sufferer. And the reason why I know it doesn't work to identify with that struggler is because look at our lives, look at our society. People are suffering. there's suffering out there, there's struggle out there, there's unhappiness out there. That's the reflection of who we are, individually, in community, nationally, internationally. Earthlings, right? If we start to shift within ourselves, it will start to ripple out. And we can be that butterfly dreaming we are Jose going to work, or we can be Jose dreaming he's a butterfly. So it's because we don't really know who we are, because we're not taught who we are. It's not nourished when we're children, and it's not anybody's fault, because we're just children of our own parents who were children of their parents and so on, who says you have to do this and this and this in order to get ahead. And we forgot harmony with nature, not all of us, but certainly in New York City, we're hard pressed to become one with the waterfall, you know, when we got to get up and take the subway and go to work. But there's nature in everything. There's nature in everything. When you walk, I encourage you, if you're a city dweller, when you walk through the city, look through the cracks and see what grows out of that crack. It's a little blade of grass or a little plant of some sort. That's nature. She presents herself everywhere. And just stop and take a breath and remember, are you the person looking at the plant, or is the plant the person, you know?
Right.
And so on.
It's interesting because in some respects, what's being said is we do not need to be prisoners of the story we have in our heads as to who we are and the life we have.
Don't.
No matter what that story looks like, good, bad, or indifferent, we can enjoy the story and realize we're infinitely more than the story. Right? We are, in fact, if you will, the Tao. And when that happens, there's something unbelievably healing in that shift in perspective.
That's right. And not only are we not the story, we're the story maker.
Ha!
So
Now that's profound.
We can create any story we want.
Right.
And how do you do it? I keep bringing it back to practical living day-to-day life. How do we do it? You start with yourself. You start with your breath. You stop the mind from telling you you're not good enough. You stop the mind comparing yourself to other people. Because guess what? The people you're comparing to and worrying about what they think of you are comparing themselves to others, worrying about what they're... So we're all human beings just trying to find peace. So just stop the chatter. When it goes off, don't feed it. Bring it back like a fishing line. Just pull it, reel it back. And just be in your breath and be in knowing that you are the story maker, knowing that you are the creator of your own thoughts.
Right.
When you change your thoughts, you change your conditions, you change your experience.
Absolutely.
Your beliefs create your experience, not the other way around.
Here at United Palace, we call ourselves the House of Spiritual Artistry, the global home of spiritual artistry. And spiritual artistry, among its many messages, is in fact, the number one message is that we have the power, the creative, artistic, spiritual power and energy to create the life that we want, the life that we dream about.
We all do.
Absolutely.
We all do. If you are born and alive on this planet, you have that capability and that possibility.
Everyone's a spiritual artist.
Everyone is a spiritual artist. Everyone. And that is the Tao.
Diane, thank you. This
Are we
was
done?
Magnificent. I could be here with you forever.
You're talking about my favorite subject.
This is magnificent.
I could just
and
go
it's
on
been
and on
really
and on.
helpful. Extraordinary. And it's been helpful, I'm sure, also to our viewers. Because the idea is to help everyone live their highest and fullest life.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here.
And we have self-healing within us. We all have it. We all have it. We all have it.
Amen.
Amen.
Reverend Diane, thank you so much. This was really magnificent. And to all our viewers, thank you for being with us. This was Open Heart Conversations. We look forward to seeing you again in the future.